Pinamaya, would you like to change Martha's name on the profile there?
I actually don't. I mean, it would be best if people would change their own names, if possible.
Okay.
You can do it in the right upper corner.
Okay.
So if you are,
that's okay. Collie
there.
will work with her. No problem. Mutsa, I see you. Welcome. Let's see here. We have others joining.
You.
Nonye, I see you. Welcome. Atwinen, I hope I say that right. Welcome. All right. We'll give this another minute as we let everyone in. It looks like Eileen and Mucha, connected to audio as yet. Haruna as well. Pinamaya, do we have just about everyone who had registered on, or at least the majority?
Not yet, but I guess people will be, joining
later.
Yeah,
as we go. Very good. All right. So, Chene, I'm sure we can get going.
Absolutely. This is really exciting. It's been such a hectic start to the year, I think, globally with COVID. And the year of Ubuntu for us represents a time when we can journey together to try to discover how the world can be better in very simple terms, and to bring together different people from different walks of life who share the same vision, that believing that I am because you are. And that's why we are all sitting here. So welcome to another session of the Year of Ubuntu. And in this session, my colleagues and I thought it would be very prudent to bring in educators. As you imagine, as we try to communicate the message about Ubuntu, it's also very important to try to understand, where does this philosophy, where are these principles coming from? And importantly, how do we bring these teachings, these principles to everybody? Because this is not the exclusive few, which is us who can be on this webinar. We want to make sure that it can reach everybody and anybody as we journey to discover what Ubuntu can, how it can heal the world, or how it can make the world a better place. So thank you so much for joining us. I am honored to have all of you. And thank you to our panelists, Martha, Sonia, and Heaton. You have no idea what this means to us. Your presence is a true reflection of the philosophy, I am because you are. So thank you. Over to Pina for the housekeeping rules.
Yes, hello from my part as well. So just some information about today's event. So the whole event is recording, and also we are streaming on, live on Facebook, just so that you know. Please, when you will be invited to work in the breakout rooms, we invite you to turn on your camera so that you can communicate better with the ones who you will share the breakout room, so that communication is more personal, even though we're far away from each other's. Also, please, while the panelists are speaking, to have your microphone turned off, so to mute yourself, so that we can all enjoy and listen and hear everyone who is speaking. Also, if there are any questions or something doesn't work, please write me a message here on Zoom. You can send it privately to me or put it in the comments, and we can resolve it. Also, you are more than free to share your thoughts with us in the comments while the event is going on, or while the panelists are speaking. There's always interesting to see what's going on there. So yeah, I think that's it from my side. Also, the recording of this event will be available on YouTube and on our website of Ecocivilisation. Also, like I said, you can find it both on Ecocivilisation and Year of Ubuntu Facebook pages. So if you want to re-listen to something, more than welcome to do it there. Also, I think that's it from my part. Like I said, if any additional questions come to your mind, please send me a message and I'll try to answer it as best as possible. And now giving the word back to Molly.
Thank you very much, Pinamaya. That's always very useful to have. I am going to share my screen to begin our part here with some of the information I wanted to share with everybody. Let me know if you can see it. All right. Yeah. So welcome everyone to this, Year of Ubuntu Summit, and we like to think of it as a summit as an opportunity for us to really reach the highest potential that we as a community, a growing community, can always have when it comes to figuring out how to deeply connect with one another so we don't feel like we are alone in the world. I like to start, our sessions typically with just a moment of silence. We recognize we are still very much in a global pandemic, and we know that others have met their demise and others have lost loved ones. It really has been an emotionally draining time for everybody. And so if we can just take a moment of silence to reflect. And if I can invite everyone, I tend to do this as well, just to take a really good deep breath in to allow more the movement of energy. So if you can just take a deep breath in and breathe out. Just allow yourself to relax. Welcome to this event, which is a party, which is also a celebration, which is an opportunity to learn. And indeed, we do have, educators, formal and informal, that we've invited here. But I'm also a big believer that all of us are educators in one way or another. We are also educators in the sense that we have young people that we inspire and that we are charged to support. And in that way, we are educators. But we're also all learners, right? Every single day is an opportunity to learn something new, to unlearn or thereabout. So let's, lean into this as an opportunity for us to more deeply connect. For those that are new to this, you may be asking, what is Ubuntu? My question to you would be, why are you interested in this kind of conversation about connection, right? So hopefully we'll continue to have those conversations and learn about it. Ubuntu in its authenticity is truly about humanity, right? In who you are actually defining Ubuntu. There are principles coming out of the African wisdom, and we anticipate this is pretty ancient in nature. Research is yet to be done, we believe, that really can help us to understand about the roots and the origins of this concept of why people want to feel more connected. Why do we feel like something is lacking out of our human experience if we do not feel as deeply connected to others as it is? The other concept that I wanted to put out today, as we're having this conversation, we recognize that meeting for 2 hours is okay, but it's more the rest of the life that we spend outside of these meetings that really matters. What is it that we are doing so that we can be remembered? What is the legacy, right, in who we are, how we are conducting our lives, what we are opening up to when it comes to learning new information? If someone were to have an opportunity to write out how they want to be remembered, what might that look like? So this is truly an invitation to think about this beyond what's happening here today. Certainly so much gratitude for your time here. Thank you also to those who are tuning in on Facebook. There is an African proverb that says, to be without a friend is to be poor indeed. When I did my research for my PhD in sustainability, a good amount of the questions I was asking were surrounding poverty and how people, identify with that concept of not having. And what I learned from Southern Africa, and particularly from my village community of Macheke, hi to everyone in Macheke, was that if people felt connected, if they didn't feel alone, if they felt they had someone they can lean on, then they didn't feel this overbearing concept of poverty. We can explore that further. So today we're going to be talking a lot about learning to be. Just who we are, who we're born to be. What is that power, right, that we have? Knowing, of course, that this is about connection and truly an invitation to connect. But connect to what, right? We want to invite a conversation about connection to self, being able to prioritize your self-care, being able to understand and set out clear boundaries, being able to recognize that you cannot offer from an empty cup. For those living in Southern Africa, where you may already know what Ubuntu is, perhaps some of the things that have occurred through our own experiences of colonization, for example, was that some of that information and that ecological knowledge may have been shifted a little bit as to how we even define, in my native Shona, we call it Hunu. And sometimes we may have to check on what we understood when it came to giving and offering. What else do we want to connect to? Right? We want to connect to others, right? And what does that mean to be able to fully connect to others? An invitation here is to be able to begin by just being able to see yourself in others, being able to make those efforts to truly have some authentic relationship with others in your family, in your workplace, in your community, and so around the world. The last one I'll mention here is nature, right? So there's so much research there that has really proven that, people that spend time in nature tend to be happier, more at peace. But we also know it's because humanity relies very much on nature. So if you have not been spending enough time in asking, what are you doing to nurture our, natural environment? Are you planting trees? Are you taking good care of, keeping a clean environment? Then perhaps there's an opportunity here, right? When we are thinking of Ubuntu, is how we are and caring for nature. We can explore that a bit further. We'll talk a bit about listening, and our panel today is actually going to be more like a fluid panel. We recognize that we have a number of other educators that's on the call today, so we may call you out and invite for you to engage in some of those conversations. But when we learn about Ubuntu, and for me, in my lived experience, I've observed this quite a bit. When I am in Macheke, for example, and I'm having a conversation with someone, one of the things that I notice is their intent to learn from what I am saying. And then perhaps they may even, reiterate what I said to understand, and they have a lot of this going on, right? And you can tell from the body language that someone is intentional about listening. What are we teaching our children, for example, when it comes to listening? From my research, I learned a lot about Ubuntu or Hunu is respect. When we talk about respecting others, some of that can actually begin from how we listen, right? Being able to understand that we can hold multiple perspectives at once, especially if someone is telling us something that we may not necessarily agree to. Being able to receive feedback and being able to give feedback. How is it that we can have an open mind, an open heart, and even more further, an open will, right? To be able to act on those things that we feel will bring more goodness into the world. I invite everyone to think a little bit about this concept of suspending the voice of judgment. A lot of times it comes in the way of us not being able to have authentic conversations with others, because we are listening while we're already downloading based on what we already know. We're already having an idea in our minds. And then by the time that we are giving a feedback, it's more a reaction versus a response. So this is again another conversation that we can have further. How are we as educators educators actually engaging with young people or engaging with students, engaging with other people in community to really think about learning, listening, and being in community through conversation. This is such a wonderful invitation for all of us. For those that were not here last time, I talked about this wonderful book called Everyday Ubuntu. So I invite you to look it up. It talks a lot about some of the practical ways in which we can all start learning or relearning how to actually express Ubuntu. And I do want to point out the two main ones that we may cover a lot today. Seeing yourself in others. Sometimes that's difficult to do, but how can we actually start learning ways in which we can be able to do that? We know that right now we're living in a world that's, quite divided. There's a lot of, conversations about how different each person is from the other. And yet look at our community, how diverse it is. People from all over the world just wanting to come together and talk about Ubuntu, to learn from this African wisdom, but also to figure out how can we be the people that are expressing Ubuntu in the world. I'll end here for the interest of time, and we should already be getting ready to go into our first breakout session. I know that the last time when we had our launch for this event, there was so much that came out from those breakout sessions that really allowed everyone an opportunity to get to know other folks that have the same interests, right? When it comes to how can we actually cultivate a deeper sense of connection, perhaps with our family members, right? Perhaps with some of our social friends. How about with co-workers? How about with people that have different views from us? So in this breakout session, initially it will really just start with us, introducing ourselves to each other. So I would invite that when you're in a breakout session room, try and find out if one person from your room will be able to take some notes so you can, share with everyone when you come out to the main room. This whole event is going to be about 2 hours, and we're going to have an opportunity for 2 breakout sessions. We'll see how that goes, given our other conversation with some of the educators we have here on the call. We'll also have an opportunity to hear more about how can educators actually utilize some tools to start gaining some information about Ubuntu, particularly from our young people. We know that we can always learn from young people. So we look forward to this conversation. We may have a 5-minute break if we have time, but at any point when you need a break, feel free to take it. You can always join us when you're able. For those on Facebook, I have to say, when we go into the breakout session, unfortunately, you are not going to be able to participate in that part, but hang tight. When we come back, you can actually get engaged in the main conversation. As always, if you have any questions at all, we want to hear from you, so you can put them in the chat there. Last time we did this, and this was really fun to also take a, kind of like a pause as to where everyone is calling in from. So if you don't mind, in the chat there, perhaps you can just let us know where you are, tuning in from, so we know what this global family is growing up to be. Pinyamaya, I guess we are going to start getting ready with regards to the breakout rooms, and each room tends to have a number, so you can sort of take a note of that to see which room you're in, and we can get this conversation going. We want to introduce ourselves. We want to talk about what we know about Ubuntu, what it is that we do when we are, teaching others or maybe learning from others. This is really an open conversation, and we invite everyone to participate.
Yeah, thank you. So right now, also in the comments, I'm sharing a link to a Jamboard where, if you want, you can write down things that you talk about while being in the breakout rooms. So feel free to do it if you feel right to do it. So no obligation. And also right now I will be so I'll be creating the breakout rooms. So when you are invited for, to a breakout room, just please accept it, and you'll be redirected to that breakout room. And then after, some time, you will be all invited to come back here. You'll have 2 minutes to finish your thoughts, and then the breakout rooms will close. So yeah, I'm doing the breakout rooms now, so please accept and have a nice talk with other friends who will join you.
So I was in a breakout room. Is this another one? Because I was in one and then
I
changed.
changed you because you and mom were in the same one, so I changed you to another one.
Okay. I see. You're killing my vibe. Hello, everybody. Hi, Angela. Hello. Hi, everyone.
Jenna, I think you still have to accept because you're still in my main room.
I did because I can see Nonye and Angela. Hi, Ange.
Hello.
There we go.
Hi, Chinesa. How are you?
You are all still in the main channel, so you are not in the breakout room. So please accept the invitation into the breakout rooms.
Alrighty, let's see if
Okay.
where would we do that? Because I thought, let me try.
If it doesn't work, I can try do it again.
I think force add because it's not giving us the option for me at least.
So I am moving you right away again.
No problem.
Here you should have gotten the invite.
Has moved you to room 10. It just says you've moved me to room 10.
Yeah, but you have to accept.
It's not giving me that option to accept or not to accept. Seriously. But let me check again. Hold on.
Then I don't know.
Hold on.
I can do it manual. I mean, I can do it if you don't accept. Otherwise, if you want, you can just have a chat here, and this can be one of the rooms, and everyone who couldn't join for some reason can have a conversation here. Okay, working. Hi. So for those who joined right now, we are doing some work in a breakout rooms. So you just got the invite, so please accept it and join the conversation in the breakout room.
Okay. All right.
Hello, Stan. Yeah. Okay. So do you have any problems going to the breakout rooms?
Welcome everybody to the main room, and welcome again to those on Facebook Live. I'm hoping that the conversations in the breakout rooms were good and exciting. I think we were probably in there a little longer than we anticipated would be. The next breakout session will be about 10 minutes or so. As others are joining in, just continuing to welcome everybody. I'm hoping that each room had somebody that they allocated to speak on behalf of them, so we can have a little bit of a conversation about what was happening there. Did we learn a little bit of why we're here, why we're interested in this, idea of connection? What does it look like when we are, educating others? Perhaps, what leadership role are we taking? My sense really is that educators are leaders. They are truly the leaders that are shaping generations and shaping the world. And it is always such an honor to hear from those that are doing this, from a place of service, but also from each of us showing up and, being more mindful in that we have opportunities to, educate and teach others, but also an opportunity always to learn as well. Thank you very much, certainly, for being here. I see that we are all now back in the room. So do we want to take a stab at room one and just hear briefly what you discussed there? If there wasn't too much, that's also okay, because I know this was a lot about introductions. Was anyone in room one that might want to represent that room? I'm seeing a lot of smiles. Is someone on mute?
Muchaneta.
Oh, yes.
Muchaneta, you have to unmute.
Oh. I wasn't sure which room I was in. Sorry.
That's okay.
Well, we were just talking about how Ubuntu is a concept that we grew up on, and we didn't articulate it as a concept. It was just a way of doing things. And as we now navigate the world, we're looking back and we're seeing that all those values that we were taught are actually values that we could probably use, that we could use now when we look at how the world is operating. One of the points that was raised was that even though we do have these values are starting to fade because we're now developing a lack of trust amongst ourselves. And maybe that's something that we should be looking at and saying, wait a minute, this is something that is of value. And we probably need to start cultivating it, maybe incorporating it in the policies that we're making, but also hedging the fact that, yes, it can be exploited, as it has been seen in platforms like GoFundMe and all those platforms that have been set up, which actually are platforms that we could utilize to address to implement the policy, the approach of Ubuntu. So recognizing that there's a value to that, but also hedging the fact that it can be exploited when we are not very clear about what this is about.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's always about being mindful, right? And checking ourselves with, what these new concepts can be, because we know that cultures change over time. What we're trying to get at is some of that more ecological, more traditional, knowledge and that research that we will do that brings us back to understanding the roots of Ubuntu is going to be pretty useful and powerful. Can we move on to room number 2? Do we know if somebody from that room might like to share a little bit about what was discussed?
I don't know if the other two women are going to join in or not. We didn't actually choose one person, so hopefully they'll join in. So we discovered that we're 3 women who all have African roots, but we're all living away from Africa. So 2 of us are living in the United Kingdom and 1 person's living in Canada. And then we also had 1 person working for an NGO with working with women. another person who's working in the health service, who's working doing community nursing, working directly with people who are affected by COVID at the moment, and then I work in education. And we were talking about the way in which Ubuntu can be brought into the work that we are doing how we can bring it into the work that we're doing. So I know that for me personally, I've been doing work directly with schools, suggesting they look at Ubuntu philosophy and see whether or not they can weave that through their curriculum and through their core values and things like that. And then Sonia was talking about the fact that through COVID, it was possible in some ways for us to let go of some of those core values within Ubuntu, because it could be that, you know, when you're losing someone who you love very much, then what you want is for them to have more than anybody else and to survive and to be comfortable. And what Sonia talked about was the fact that she's noticed that we've actually moved closer towards Ubuntu again, where we're taking better care of our community and of our neighbours and making sure that we're all okay. So that was quite heartwarming. And then we shared a slide which is around which quite simply says strong women lift each other up. It takes real strength to lift someone up higher than yourself, to pull them up after they've fallen down, to hold them up when they're too weak to stand alone. And so that just felt like a powerful thing for us to look at in terms of what we're doing as individual women, but also what we're doing within our jobs respectively.
Thank you so much, Alison. And we have our team reach out to you so we can get a copy of that slide, if that's okay, so we can share with others as well. That was pretty powerful. And, you know, for the interest of time, we'll move to the next room, if that's okay. The conversation will continue happening, but we want to make sure we cover all of the rooms we have. So room 3, do we have someone who can share a little bit about what they talked about there?
Yes, I can share a little bit. We spent most of our time introducing ourselves, but through introducing ourselves, we realized that we all have one value that we have in our personal brands, and it's the value of compassion. We had Priscilla, who's working with the anti-poaching unit in Zimbabwe, and she shared that as she's teaching the children how to love animals and showing compassion to animals, they are also going to show compassion to their little world out there, to everyone that's around them. We had Ralph, who's into African security, and as he's hosting workshops about security, be it crime or food security, he's also teaching everyone how to show compassion to each other in their countries in Africa. And then there was me and Justin, who are lovers of children as educators, and we are constantly showing compassion to the children that we teach. And by showing them compassion, we're teaching them how to be helpful and show compassion to everyone around them.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. What I love about this is, you know, just hosting these events helps us to know that we are already on the path, right? We're already on the right path, but getting more of this permission to actually say, yes, we can choose humanity. Yes, we can choose compassion. We can choose to uplift each other. That's pretty remarkable. Thanks for sharing, Lynn. Shall we move to the next room 4?
I guess that's us. I'm not sure what room we are on.
That's okay. Go ahead.
So I can go ahead. My name is Stanley, and I was in a room together with Mutsa and Violetta. Mutsa is also from Zimbabwe like me, but living abroad just like me. And Violetta was from Europe, can't remember which country right now. But what we talked about, I think building up on what, yeah. Thank you, Violet. So what we talked about, building up on what you just said, yes, we can choose compassion. Yes, we can choose to come from understanding. We said in our group that we can choose to come from love. And when we do that, we are training ourselves and we are training the persons that we interact with that coming from love is the answer to most of our connections. When we choose love, we connect with others, even if they might not be practicing love themselves. But by choosing love, we actually give them the possibility to do that when they go on to meet with other people. We also discussed respect, and we said respect is a bit of a tricky one, because the way I show respect might not be the way you show respect, especially when we are interacting with international people. But what it requires is listening, again, coming back to the person in front of you and really connecting with what is as it is, without judgment and with open will, as we have already said. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And what's good about this is, I think in modernity, we've sort of been made to feel a little shy, right? To use the word love, right? We want to use all these other terms surrounding it because love just seems like too deep or too much. And yet here with Ubuntu Wisdom, we are putting it at the forefront and saying, let's do it, right? We're hearing, a Black man, who is from Zimbabwe, being able to advocate for love. That's a celebration. Thank you so much for sharing that. Shall we move on to the next room, 5? Do we know who was there and who might want to speak?
Oh, hello, I am Tendai. I was from group 5. In our group, we had Pina, we had Leslie, and your grade 1 and 2 teacher. I forgot her name. So we got about to discuss. I only figured that people got passion, right? I can take, for example, Pina, she says she's working in finance management, but she's gonna go back and take a degree in education because she loves kids. And from your teacher, I learned that we should be able to mold people from their earlier stage to grow up being people we have love for one another. And we got to ask here more questions on how are they overcoming educating children during COVID-19 and a lot of stuff. And she was praising me a lot about the things that they're doing for the community. And from Leslie, I learned that he's a guy who is bringing up other guys from the bottom level by giving them capacity building. So I learned it's about leadership, helping each other transform lives from different levels of life. And that's all I had to learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Tendai, for sharing. That's pretty remarkable there. And yes, I guess we'll hear from Miss Martha Makue, who actually was my first grade teacher, 40 years ago. So, sometimes in life you ask yourself, what is your legacy? And then, 40 years later, you are looking back and seeing one of your own students that you taught, to have a spirit of Ubuntu, being out in the world and continuing to champion the same thing. So that will be pretty interesting. Shall we move on to the next room, 6? Does anyone want to speak about what you discussed there?
Oh, so in room 6, it was myself, Tembi, and there was Antoine, Sisi Una, and Elaine. And all 4 of us are African women. 3 are still rooted in Africa, and I live in America, in Maryland. And we started sharing just what Ubuntu meant to us in the space that we were currently occupying. And I shared how the fact that they were all 3 of them crafting a space where I could share a piece of myself with them, how that was exemplary of Ubuntu. And Antoine spoke about how learning and acquiring knowledge from each other is her practice of Ubuntu. And Sis Una spoke about the importance of being mindful of others. So not necessarily putting yourself first and your interest, but just shifting yourself backwards so that you can make that space that allows you to recognize others in your presence. And Elaine gave us a wider topic to talk about. She's in charge of a nonprofit organization which is Africa Youth Diaspora Organization. And she is on a journey to seek how her organization can begin to define its soulful purpose. So she recognizes that this is a movement that is very essential in the sense that it incorporates the youth who are based in Africa, as well as the youth in the diaspora. And what becomes important is not necessarily the goal, because the goal can be easily defined, but what becomes essential is recognizing that engaging in that journey towards obtaining that goal. She wants the journey itself to be meaningful, so that everyone can begin to recognize each other as a family, and they can embody that spirit of Ubuntu, which can then ground the organization as the soul of the organization. So we started delving into that and speaking more about it. And a question was presented as to how do we know when you are living the concept of Ubuntu. So Sisi Una, who is a mother and a mother of kids who are African and have lived in different parts of the world, yet continue to embody what us, the adults, can look at and say, this is that soulful spirit that needs to be transported to different parts of the world. When grooming the youth, she started sharing with us what is it that she's been able to do. And what's essential is the idea of recognizing the importance of your role as an adult who is shaping young lives, and taking that seriously, recognizing that yes, there are multiple competing cultures, there's peer pressure, there are value systems out there that are going to compete for the soul of your children, but knowing that you can always counter that by living that which you espouse and value, right? So recognizing that they have to be beautiful on the outside as well as on the inside. Actually, on the outside is not necessarily that important. That gets that sort of gets defined by what comes from inside. So recognizing that you have to be selfless, knowing that what matters for you is being respectful, being loving, being compassionate. So those are the values that one has to craft in order to broaden that spirit of Ubuntu. And Antoine said that even the short moments that she gets, so when she's on social media, when she's interacting with others during a very limited period of time, knowing that that is a space that you've been honored with, so you have to use it in a worthwhile manner. And the way she does that is promoting a spirit of kindness and a spirit of compassion. So these are the various tools that we started sharing as far as laying the groundwork for Ubuntu. And by the way, as Sisi Una said, it's essential to recognize that you will never be able to get anywhere by yourself. What is worthwhile in formulating and relationships and connecting with people and finding the worth in each and every person, and recognizing that they all have something to add that can augment our experience.
Thank you, Tembi. Wow, that room was packed with really deep conversation. But I love that so much because we recognize that we are, learners, but we are also educators. And a big amount of, this education piece is the time we're tasked with young people, right? Whether they are children or other young people that, we can influence in some capacity. Thank you so much for sharing that. Shall we move on to the next room? Are we now at room 7?
Okay, hello everyone. I think I mixed up the numbers, but if this is room 7, So my name is Noye, and I actually had some conversations with two amazing people. I had a conversation with Mary, and I also had a conversation with Hilton. And probably because of time, I'll probably just summarize some total of our thoughts. We realized that it's very important for us to be intentional about our relationships, because these relationships to an extent could make us or could mar us. And if, for instance, we are focused on spreading love to others, being there for each other, to an extent, it's going to impact on our own lives positively. So I learned we should be intentional with our relationships, be there for people always, love selflessly, have the spirit of empathy towards others. And then the energy that you display towards others is literally the energy that comes to you also. And Mary shared how she has been able to impact a lot of people, being there in the best little way she could, and then how it has literally impacted several lives. And in turn, if we show others love, they then show the world love, and then the world becomes a better place.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, we do know that like culture, it spreads, right? Like fire, it spreads. So if it's starting with us as a group of 60 people here, plus those on Facebook Live, and we continue to cultivate the spirit of really courageous, opportunities to connect with others, and, remembering that concept of respect, right? That we are thinking about Ubuntu as respect for self, respect for others, respect for the environment. Naturally, we have it in us to be able to express those things and to be able to feel those things. So hopefully, we are continuing to be a little, movement that becomes a fire and can spread around. Do we want to move on to the next room, 8?
8 was Stanley. He already presented.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Stan. And room 9.
Okay. Thank you, Molly. This was the best group. No, I'm just joking. So Tutsarai talked about that, you need people and they need you. And the idea is to, achieve success without injuring people. And I think that was really important because as she mentioned, that so many people can achieve, quote, success, but they've hurt many people in the process. So how do you achieve success without injuries? And I think she also mentioned that, you might get to the top, but you don't have anyone to celebrate with, which obviously then to me is not success, right? And I believe Molly talked about giving ourselves permission, and just again, emphasizing the importance of connection. Jane mentioned that there might be a fading of the idea of that a child was everyone's child, and that there's parental cover, so that parents were, everyone was a child's parent, and that there was more direction given to youth. I mentioned the idea of the similarity between servant leadership and the fact that as when I became chair of our department, or the department head, I told everyone that I work with, I said, my job is to make your life easier, right? And so I think there's a lot of similarities there. And I guess I will also say that I plan to share this in our school, because I think there is this need for, this to sort of expand. My pitch is going to be, because right now I don't think we're necessarily demonstrating that. And I would, my pitch is going to be, let's model this for the university as a way to get, certain folks to buy into this who aren't necessarily practicing it. So Molly, did you have, or anyone else you want to add to that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Jane in our group also added about her experience. So she was born in South Africa, lives in Zimbabwe now. And she speaks about when she goes into the rural, communities, the sense of hospitality is so consistent all the time that people are, opening their homes with a deep sense of love. Now I can, I've been given the permission to use the word love. And that is something that we can speak to the spirit of Y.O.U or Ubuntu in a way that when we think about leadership and all of the works that we're doing in modernity, in what ways can we actually cultivate this concept of hospitality in the places of work, but also even in the classroom, right? So thank you, Chris, for sharing that. How many rooms did we have, Pinyamayam? Did we have a room 10?
Yes.
Okay, I won't leave out room 10. Please speak up if you were in room 10.
I was in room 10, and I think I'm going to ask Patience. I think the bulk of our time we spent just trying to investigate what has brought us here. And the reason we went through that journey was to try to understand how we can get many others in our situations to understand the value of Ubuntu as a concept, as a way of life. So I don't know if Patience is still with us, if she may please indulge us and explain what has brought us here.
Absolutely, I'm still here.
Thanks,
Hi, as I shared with my group, I've lived here, I live in New Jersey, and I've been away from home, Zimbabwe, since 1992. Naturally, a very shy person, and to myself. I keep to a very small circle. And recently, because of COVID and personal loss, Ubuntu played out in a way that I would have never imagined in my life. At the beginning of COVID, I lost my mom in May. I couldn't go home for that. And then soon after that, I lost my brother who was here with me. I'm a single mom and I have my niece here. That's my immediate family. So we had to repatriate my brother. I did not know where to begin because I was still trying to heal from the loss of my mom. And here I was faced with my brother wanting to be buried home. Saying all this to say, when the loss occurred, I pretty much had my community pretty much pick up the phone and say, you know, we are going to walk you through this. And they did. And I absolutely could not have done it on my own. And I can't, you know, thank the fact that the community was there for me so much. As a person who naturally always is to herself and her close family, I'm now encouraged and learning to be part and to get myself involved in what others do and others' situation, and just really trying to grow and extend myself more as others extended themselves to me. So for me, that's, you know, that's why I'm here. That's why I want to continue to learn, because I just felt community, that Ubuntu was there for me in a way I could have never imagined. That's what we discussed in our group.
Yeah. Thank you, Patience. You know, and you know, we know that this is a place of celebration, and celebration comes in many forms. You probably have seen me getting a bit emotional there because I've been in Patience's life for quite some time. But recognizing that sometimes you even learn, right, the experience of what Ubuntu can do for others in such a way that it inspires them to come out into community. What an honor that is for all of us to live from this place of authentic self and reaching out to others, because we just don't know what that may do. And then it becomes again this movement, right, that we're talking about. The world may say, oh, but it's just 60 people, you know, but these are, 60 communities, right, that can easily be enlivened and motivated and encouraged to even be better. What a celebration. Thank you for sharing that very personal story.
Oh, you're welcome.
Did we have room 11 or room 10 was it? Okay, very good. So we will now move on to the next part of our program. It always feels like we could spend a whole day together, but we don't have that much time. Our panel, like I said, is going to be more like a fluid panel. There'll be others that I may call in for this conversation as well. As we are learning how to figure out how to host these events, we are looking for your feedback, of course, to let us know, what can we do better. Last time, I think people wanted, more time in breakout sessions, a little bit of time for a break so they don't miss out. So we'll make sure we continue to include, some of the feedback into how we are curating these events. For our panel discussion, I wanted to ask a couple of questions and see whether some of our educators on the group might like to chime in. And when you begin to answer, I may just call on your name. If you don't mind, just to let us know what type of education you teach, what type of educator you are, so that others can have more insight. And so the first question really is asking about authentic Ubuntu in its utility. Would you say that it's more of a practice or really a badge that you can wear on your chest? You walk around and people know, oh, there is a person of Ubuntu in that way. Sonia, perhaps we can start with you. Might you want to share a little bit there?
Thank you. First, I have to say it is really a great pleasure to hear different viewpoints of Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the word that I'm in love with from 5 years ago when I first heard it. I am a lecturer for business students at Y.O.U College. As well, I am also a coach to senior leaders, senior managers, and I see Ubuntu as a way how can we create trust-based relationships. Because relationships is what creates our reality. And if we understand this, then we will not seek for example, for obedience and discipline, but we will create a place where each of us can be included, where each of us can really create the best response to each situation, where each can act as a leader. And for me, Ubuntu is not just that we know how we create relationships, but also that we know where from the inner space we lead. It was said already today, Stanley said so nicely, that coming from love is our decision. And yes, creating relationships that nurture each talent, that nurture each potential, and that understands that we are gifts to each other. This is for me Ubuntu in leadership.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for that. I'm wondering whether Martha is still on. I know she was on the call a little bit earlier. This is my teacher from first grade who is calling in from Acheke. I know that the network there was a little dicey this morning, or rather it's evening her time. Martha, are you still on? Okay, and perhaps we may have lost her. At any point, if you join back in, feel free to just unmute. Oh, there you are. Okay, very good. Yeah, so, oh, yeah. So the network is very bad. We can't hear you. I think what we'll do is we'll wait a while. We'll have our team work with you in the back and see whether we can get you connected better. I will share a little bit of what you shared with me when we were preparing for this session in case we were not able to hear you. At any point when you're able to join back in, let us know so that I can have you speak. Okay, and yeah. No, we can't really hear you well. I think the network is bad. Corley, do you think you could perhaps give her a call and just help her to re-sign in again, just to join the meeting again? So she will have to exit and come back in. Typically, that normally works well. So we have other, educators here on the call as well. I don't know, Hiten, if you are available, if you might want to share, a little bit about your thoughts regarding Ubuntu as a practice versus, just a badge that someone can wear. If you are there, feel free to share.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. I don't know, in a lot of ways, I don't feel a kind of a good fit for this conversation, partly because like when we first spoke a week ago, I explained that my kind of role or my interest is really being more of a kind of provocateur. And I'm curious about the origin of this practice. And as I hear how it has played out and how people have kind of understood it or come to it or engage with it, I question whether it's particularly of this continent, and also when it's spoken about as an African practice. I'm curious about how that starts to confirm a sort of homogeneity that for me is a little bit uncomfortable. I do kind of agree and really want to kind of back what Sonia is talking about, the fact that understanding this as a practice that comes kind of from a kind of lateral spread, and it's not necessarily a hierarchical thing, so nobody owns.
Correct.
There is no ownership on a practice like this. And I think what concerns me more and more when I look at how it is being played out in different kind of spheres, how people are latching onto it as a kind of badge, as you talk about.
Yeah.
And how that then belies the practice. And also, how is it that we understand the practice not necessarily as something that we lift from the past, wherever it comes from, but also understanding it as a process that continues to develop, and how it is an evolving process. And I think the struggle right now is to understand how this practice comes into kind of challenge what we've developed into a very self-centered society.
Yeah.
And how this process or this practice can I don't know, like disrupt or trouble it a little bit.
Yeah.
So my role, the work that I do primarily with the students that I work with, is really to undo hierarchy and bring in, allow people to share what their process of sharing is, as opposed to impose or teach. Is to really kind of listen, bring in ideas, experiment with things, and through a kind of series of sort of speculative experiments, start to understand this practice as a global one, and not necessarily as a sort of continental thing. And how we can invite more thinking from communities from around the world who I think have practiced this in their own particular way, and to kind of undo its Africanity in a way to understand it more as a kind of global practice.
Thank you very much, Hiten. And that's a remarkable point, well taken, because we have been talking about this really as a global movement. Certainly what we have been seeing is it's happening in pockets, but people are not coming together to say, well, this is how I am actually experiencing Ubuntu. If we're saying Ubuntu is about humanity and connection, where is that coming from? What is our need for feeling so connected? And we know that there are some examples, and I think Violetta has mentioned this in my previous conversations with her, that when she experiences her life in Europe, it's quite different from the way I experience my life in Africa, for example, where I am constantly in deep faith that there's someone I can lean on, right? There's a real good sense that people show up when you need them to. So go ahead. Was someone saying something? Okay, so this concept of it being, you know, a wisdom from a certain place, we can think of it as a wisdom of humanity, and perhaps even, you know, earlier in, you know, in research. But this is why this conversation is so important, because I would like for us to figure out ways that we can actually have more of a global perspective to this. We are talking right now, for example, I'm in California and I work for a global company, and I see the gaps, right? I see opportunities where leadership can actually be more about connection, more about, you know, servant leadership. And what is it that we can continue to bring to the table, you know, from what you are sharing there, Hiten and Sonia, you touched on this a little bit as well, about disrupting this concept of the hierarchy, right? So we're sitting in a circle, you know, doing our work together and being able to still meet those, you know, very aggressive, you know, bottom lines or whatever the goals for the company may be. In our own lives, the question then becomes, in what ways are we actually, you know, tapping into what we know from practice, but also learning from others, such as those in this community, to be able to bring that forward. I don't know if Chenesai and Violetta would like to chime in.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Molly, and thanks for everyone for such deep sharing so far. It's really put me in a place of reflection. And if I may, Heaton, challenge your proposition that you are not a good fit for this conversation. I think when I thought of you, and I consider you a dear mentor, even to the work I do in the creative sector, is that very position that allows everyone to start reflecting. I think it's very important as we journey in this movement, and as we call it over and over, a journey, is to continue to question what does it mean to an individual, what does it mean to a global scale, but importantly, what I do like about your contribution as well as Sonia's is that part where we start to interrogate the why. Because when we get into a space, in my sense, in the space you have taken me through with my work, is always when you go deeper, is when you continue to contribute with value and you present yourself in a way that you can make impact. So it's not just about Africa, it's about a global movement. So I do want to say, I think you are the right person to be on this platform to get us thinking. Why Ubuntu? What is Ubuntu? And how Ubuntu? So thank you so much, Ethan, as well as Sonia so far. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Martha.
Yeah, I don't know if you are able to speak now, Martha. Can you hear us? Miss Makue, you can unmute yourself. Can you?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Greetings. You know, I know that you are right there. Yes. Did you want to share a little bit, you know, about your story and your work?
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Molly. I'm 60 years old, born Thai. Then I did my secondary education up to Form 4 at St. Augustine's High. During that time, the girl child was just expected to end up at Form 4. So that's when I went for a teacher's college. But deep down my heart, I wanted to proceed with my education. So when I got married, I became a teacher and started some of my first children when I taught was Dr. Molly and her brother, Farai Madziva. They were very, very good students and intelligent, generous. Their mother used to take an extra lunch box for the teacher, full of goodies. So just like she's wearing her hair like that, she used to have some ponytails. I still remember her as a little girl, so many years ago. Then from there, because I had a passion of being educated, at the age of 40, I registered and did Form 5 and 6 at an evening school. Then I couldn't go to university because my husband passed away. So I had to educate my children to go because I had that yearning. I to cities until they are until they had their degrees. Some of them is a medical doctor in the USA, Chicago. Another one is also there in Boston doing a master's. Then a boy is in Namibia doing civil engineering. From there, at 60, I really wanted to do something again. That's when someone discouraged me that I was too old to go for a driver's license, but I had to go for it. So during this lockdown period, I had to attend my lessons, driving lessons. Then I took a driver's license at 60. So it's never too late to achieve anything.
Thank you, Ms. Martha, for sharing that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And, so you're telling your story from a place of being an educator who is truly a learner, right? And showing that the resilience in what it means to continually learn is something that can be in its own right, the Ubuntu way of being. Because through learning, we are actually now able to show others through our own example. So we were talking about this concept of practice versus a badge, right? Ubuntu, and yours is, could be this practice, because then others can learn from you, and particularly in the circumstances that you grew up, where during the colonial times, just to give others context, young women were not able to, young Black women were not able to achieve a certain amount of education, especially if you're in the rural communities. So you had to only become either a policeman, a teacher, and I forget the other thing, it might have been a nurse. And then she went into education. And so she has committed, her life really of service to educating young people. And it started with, the classroom that my brother and I were in. And 40 years later, she's still educating young people. Ms. Martha, I don't know if you can hear me, but may you want to say a little bit about listening, this concept of listening, the Ubuntu way, the Hunu way of listening.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Molly. Even in our society, we are always encouraged to listen. When elders are talking, adults are talking, or even we should listen, starting from the classroom. When I look at my children and I find that some of them are not behaving well, or they are just being lazy, instead of just reprimanding them or even punishing them, I have to listen to their problems. I take them aside, then ask what the problem is. And in most cases, you'll find that that child needs a shoulder to lean on. In so doing, most of my children, all of them, they love me because they learn in a free environment. Then generally, when we talk about listening again in our society, we should listen to elders who have experienced and seen it all, so that we won't get lost. So that we won't walk in the past which they walked and they got lost. So they will encourage us. Then at school, I also teach my children about the golden rule: do to others what you want to do unto them. So when my children listen, that class, I produce a very good pass rate because of that. Whenever we listen to our intuition, we can make the right decisions we want in life, and we will just succeed. So I think in order for us to achieve that thing of being to having that good Ubuntu, gentleness, kindness, and even diligence, we need to listen to others, because no man is an island. We need to share as communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Martha. You can mute your line if you like, but I really appreciate your sharing this, really speaking about speaking about listening, shall we come back to you, Sonia, and hear a little bit of more what you can say in your experiences as an educator, and also, I guess, coaching folks that are actually leading, you know, the CEOs and, you know, the people in the C-suite who are leading companies. What is this, what are your thoughts surrounding the concept of listening, particularly when we're thinking about the Ubuntu spirit?
I think that Martha told us the essence of listening. Listen with your intuition. So yes, it is important how we listen. Or do we listen so that we are just confirming what we already know? Or we are listening with the open heart to really explore what is going on, and that we are also able to hear what is not spoken. And when we are listening with open heart and open will, then we can create a space that something new can emerge. And this is very important in leadership, especially nowadays. We live in a VUCA world. We have the pace of changes, I don't know, it's hard to imagine. And we cannot rely on the knowledge we had before. So it's very important that we listen and we sense what is going on. Mm-hmm. And that's why I believe that the spirit of Ubuntu can support leaders also in the nurturing of their listening, but also in creating the space where people will be really willing to engage, to respond, to co-create. Because Ubuntu in the business means, yes, we are equal. And because I am who I am, because you are who you are, it means that I can only develop myself with relationships with others. Mm-hmm. And each relation being the relation that cheer me up or the relation that disappoint me, mm-hmm. affects me and gives me the feedback. Mm-hmm. And if you are the leader and understands that everything is feedback, and you are listening with your open heart, open will, with intuition, mm-hmm. then you can find a creative response to a situation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, both you and Martha, they are really touching onto something that is pretty remarkable, because you tend not to learn of this necessarily as a skill in the formal academic sector, right? Being able to, you know, lean into that intuition. You know, how can you tell that you need to make certain decisions, or you need to be able to learn from what others may be sharing with you, but really having an open heart, you know, an open will to engage with others so that we can continue to learn from one another without the hierarchies or this idea that perhaps someone is more important than the other. Martha touched on, you know, this concept that we talked about on our last session, where we lean into the wisdom of our grandmothers, our grandparents, you know, those in our communities that have lived, you know, long enough that perhaps they might know something, right? And I think Hiten had mentioned a little bit about this is more a movement and a process and, you know, a continuation. So we are not meeting Ubuntu at a certain place where it has never moved. We're not meeting Ubuntu and saying this is just what it is, and it has no opportunity for it to be received and shared around the world in other ways. So that is pretty inspiring. Hiten, I don't know if you had anything to share here. Otherwise, we can move on to the next bit. We were talking a little bit about listening and that concept of education with Ubuntu.
No, I'm good. You can carry on.
Okay, very good. So at this point, we're going to move on to Violetta to share briefly with us. What we want to encourage is we have these conversations, but then we want to have some practice, right? Ways in which we can continue to learn more and to meet Ubuntu where it needs to be met. And a good amount of that may be, what can we learn from young people? And so Violetta, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and share with us some of your suggestions of what, educators, but all of us perhaps as parents who are, taking care of, or relatives taking care of young people, what can we continue to do in engaging Ubuntu through education?
Thank you, Molly, and hello, everyone. It's been quite engaging to listening to all of you, for listening to all this incredible, honest comments that are really inspiring, and I'm so happy that we can build on them. So I was asked just to propose a little bit around what kind of topics we could engage in the realm of education. And I'm very humble in front of you. I will present some of the ideas, but please feel completely free to challenge them completely. I'm fully aware that they're coming from the Western mind sort of environment, but only together we can build something that might be of use for the future generation on a global new civilizational paradigm. So in order to get your attention, I put together a few slides which I'd like to share. As I said, I will be more than happy to receive kind of additional proposals, challenge my ideas. I used to, while I was studying, I used to teach all the time at the universities, high schools, elementary schools. We were introducing through the INCO movement innovation to all levels of education in Slovenia. And we really learned a lot through those engagements, how to inspire young people in order to feel valuable members of the society and to really be able to contribute. As Molly mentioned at the beginning, learning about who we are is one of the essential elements of Ubuntu movement. But I would also add imagining who we want to be. I find a bit of lack of imagination these days. I feel like we are all somehow trapped in this COVID situation, and we need to encourage ourselves and of course the youth, which actually are our future, to dare to imagine the world that they would like to live. Because the thought is always first. That is the most powerful tool for transformation, is the first thought. And everything else then follows as an action. When we work with the youth, I would invite all of us to embrace all levels of their development. Especially in the Western world, we see as being very much we narrow down the education to intellectual and physical elements. Now they're coming back the emotional levels as well, but we are far away from embracing the importance of social relationships. Sonia mentioned this many times, the importance of the relationships, a spiritual dimension, and of course the energy to manifest your own ideas. So when we work with especially with the youth, I would invite you to try to inspire and open up all of their dimensions, that they can really then empower themselves to understand, to connect, to be able to act in the full capacity. So for that purpose, I have a couple of examples what you can do on a level of a kindergarten. For example, because I worked with kindergartens as part of this innovation ecosystem as well. And I was amazed how incredible capacity these young fellows to the age of 5, 6 have to imagine, to really imagine the world they want to live. So my proposal is that we reserve, of course, for all different age groups, a space on the webpage where we can publish what they learn, what they produce, and what they want to share. For example, for the kindergarten kids, we can ask them to talk to their grandparents about Ubuntu. When they return to kindergartens, maybe to ask them to draw what they have learned, and ask them to tell in their own words, when seated in a circle, what they remember from the conversations with grandparents. They are completely capable of doing so. And then, of course, the kids, especially the younger ones, they are very responsive to songs. So I wonder if there are any songs about Ubuntu, or if there are songs that you could say that they are in the spirit of Ubuntu and they should be brought to the surface and practice and use in order to work with the youth. So the next one, we will share this presentation, so it's okay. Elementary school, again, here we see that they can gradually start expanding their capacity to manifest, and they can start not only drawing, but writing as well, or they can use any other media to report what they've heard from the elders. And again, I will ask, I will propose that you invite them to sit in the circle and let them share what they wrote, what they learned, and especially encourage them to express what they felt. Again, this we could publish and work on a page. I would not encourage us to move into competition, because I think competition is a devastating sort of tool of a modern society, which pushes others to compare with each other, which means that we are then failing to acknowledge the uniqueness and 100% of talents that each person has. So instead of competition, we will just encourage that they do the best, and we publish them without any judgment. And we've heard how important it is that we don't judge, but we embrace every feeling and every understanding, and through that bring the net together, the powerful network of different impulses from which we all can learn. Well, in the high school, this could be even more increased, not only to share within their own classrooms and within their own circles, but let the students go out into the communities and practice Ubuntu and have a practical experience and report back, write about it. How did they feel? What kind of responses they got? And what have they learned? And then encourage them that they can use any media they want in order to report on that and share their experiences. Maybe you can make exhibitions at school that would apply to all levels, kindergarten, elementary, and high school, that they can see, and then the rest of the students who are not engaged, that they can learn from them and maybe be encouraged that next time they're part of it. Maybe you can create school quizzes on Ubuntu, or and then even have some sort of, here I'm basically going against myself, school and state competitions, but I'm sure that we can figure out something smarter than competition, in a sense, who wins, but maybe in a sense, who contributes a new knowledge, a new understanding, a new awareness, and give them a feeling that they actually matter, and that their thoughts matter, and that their understandings matter. And again, this could be then collected and published on a web page. The same for universities. I didn't go too much into the extent, but I'm sure that Ubuntu, in order to be raised on the level of a true philosophy, it needs to be researched. We need to have a research project here. The university professors somehow need to be addressed. I hope that through this community today, some of you, and hopefully you will share later on that with us, are at the university level as well. And you can help to bring this awareness to different classes, not only to archaeology, but also to philosophy, to culture, to social science, and probably many others. And as Hitan already made a very important point before, it's that we encourage students to make connection on a global level. Ubuntu is African impulse, African strong message to the world. But interesting enough, in different periods of the history of this planet Earth, throughout different civilizations, we saw similar movements happening all over the world. And Sonia was the one who brought a great attention to at least 5 of them, but there are more, you know. There are important impulses in New Zealand through Aroha and Maori people. There are important impulses in Latin America, in Europe, and I'm sure that in Australia, every continent has that. And it's time that we start creating a collective awareness of philosophy that can move us forward and actually can offer on this planet Earth an alternative to what is happening right now. So instead of constantly pushing for a higher production, productivity, and exhaustion of all the resources, there must be another way to coexist and to build a prosperous society in the future. So I believe that educators are playing an extremely important role in that through engaging the youth, that they dare to go beyond what the frameworks of thought we have currently in place. And as it was said before, our role of adults is that we listen and we see the sparkles that these young people are bringing to the table and guide them to be even more bold and even more the dare to challenge the established limits and help us to imagine a much better world that we all want to live. So please use your imagination and create with the youth, share the good and bad practices, and learn and grow together. And of course, keep us in the loop. We would love to publish everything that is emerging. This could be a very exciting message, not only of Ubuntu, but of the youth of this planet. Thank you very much, Molly.
Thank you very much, Violeta. That was great. And, you know, I was looking at those slides and thinking, you know what, when I have someone who is young and, you know, interested in learning, I can certainly share with them. So it can even be used outside the classroom. I'm seeing that for the interest of time, we won't be able to make it for the second breakout room session, but we will stay on the call, you know, after the event is over. So for those that want to continue engaging in dialogue, certainly do. One of the things I think as we are winding down that we want to think about is, you know, where is it that we are getting this information from, and how can we meet Ubuntu where it's currently at, recognizing that there are, you know, others from all over the world that we can learn from. But in my first slide, when I made my presentation earlier, I did share, you know, a note about legacy. And I find that sometimes when we ask ourselves that question, what might I want to be remembered for, right? That sort of helps us to start aligning with our life's purpose. And I'm really a big believer that, you know, that purpose is a lot to do with, you know, honoring the self, others, and the environment, and being able to have, you know, an experience that actually will be able to make a difference even after we are all gone, right? Others may be able to experience a world that has been so inspired by us. I did get a comment from Leslie, I believe it was. You wanted to share something. I don't know if Leslie is still on the call.
I am. I don't know if it's new information, but I just was thinking, instead of coming from an educator standpoint, just from being a student, what educators had the most influence on me and why? You know, so those educators that were invested in me personally, those were the people I wanted to work hardest for. I wanted them to be proud of me, and not only for their affirmation, but also I would share with other people, this person is awesome, do well. You know, it motivated me and it helped me to motivate others. So just looking at it from a different perspective, who had the most influence on you and why. And sometimes it was very basic things. It didn't have to be some long discussion or whatever, but just I think about like being a teenager and mood swings and things going on in my personal life, and having one particular instructor, very even temperament. She wouldn't get annoyed. She wouldn't get upset. She talked to us like we were adults. What's going on? Are you okay? Do you need a break? Very basic things, but it made me respect her because I felt like she respected us. And that's the type of educator I want to be. I don't have to, we always we think it has to be some grand act, but it can just be the small things day to day that engage our students and let them know that they matter and motivate them to do better.
Thank you, Leslie. So well said and articulated there. This is pretty remarkable. Shall we take a moment just to give a real deep gratitude for the educators that have shaped our lives? We can just clap hands, or you can do it the way that you typically do in your own culture. Let's go ahead and thank everyone and say thank you to the educators. Thank you for those that have come before us, that have actually been shaping who we are, shaping generations, and helping us, like Hiten was saying, to start questioning some things, right? Why are things the way they are? And can they actually be different? What can I bring, right? Because we are all showing up onto this human experience truly with the gifts that we bring, and recognizing that we matter. We are a part of this human experience for a reason. We are for sure on purpose. And now that we are creating this, movement, I hope that you're all connecting with each other on social media and somehow starting to really grow relationships that help us to be able to work with each other, invite each other where someone else is doing something. This is supposed to be a safe and a very brave space. And I'm really grateful for every one of you for the time that you have taken out of your day where you could have been doing, so many other things. But to want to learn and to commune with others. Thanks for the technology that allows us to even be able to do this. We were able to hear from, a teacher in rural Zimbabwe, Miss Martha, who articulated about what it means to be a learner through and through. We heard from Sonia, a leader and an educator in Slovenia, in Europe, really talking a lot about this concept of respect and connection, and Hiten touched on something that we are all going to be thinking about, once this meeting is done, which is questioning, right, where things are. And if we can have this curiosity, as Violetta was inviting, that we continue to ask questions, when we have children and they're asking us why, that's a gift, right? And being able to lean into that and seeing how we can learn from those that are younger than us, learn from those that have lived so long enough that they have certain wisdom, but for the rest of us, continuing to ask, how are we contributing? How will I be remembered? Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Chenesai, did you want to say one closing thing before those that really have a hard stop can leave, and those that want to stay, we can move on the conversation for another 20 minutes or so?
Thank you, Dr. Molly. I don't know if there's anything left to say, but to say this, I am because you are. And when I look at you and you look at me, I have to really believe that I can only be because you are. So thank you so much for joining us. It seems so simple, a phrase, but when you really reflect upon it, you really start reimagining what it really means to be an active citizen of this global community. So thank you, Maitabasa, Siyabonga.
Thank you. Very good. Violetta, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
No, just great. Let's keep going and use social media, repost, comment, criticize, engage. That's the key. We are at the beginning of something very special.
I think so too, absolutely. So for those that have a hard stop, you can move on. For those that are staying on, we want to hear a little bit more from you. I would like to further this conversation about legacy and just hear where we are at with that, right? Are we intentionally shaping how we are living our lives in such a way that will be remembered in a certain way. I think Patience earlier had shared a very interesting, narrative of her own experience of, watching, some of her family members pass on. And, we get opportunities to write the obituaries of those that have gone. But while we are here, do we have an opportunity to be able to think a little bit about what that might be for ourselves? What have educators who have been in our lives, how have they shaped us in such a way that we recognize that we have a vibrant and Huno-hearted, Ubuntu-spirited legacy. Thank you to everyone who is leaving now. No problem at all. Thank you for your time. And we see there are some troopers that are sticking around with us, which I love. I see a good friend of mine, Katie, from Drexel University. We were in that program together there, engineers, and doing what we do in the world. Perhaps, Katie, if you are not feeling like I'm just jumping on, on you like that, can you share a little bit about why you were, interested in showing up for this conversation, and what are some of your thoughts so far?
Well, it's so interesting. I love hearing from all of these people who are educators, who have education degrees, because I'm not an educator, but I have, my niece is in my life, and she's very important to me, and she's 16. And Molly and I have kind of talked about, the challenges that she faces, and especially, she's had some difficulties. Her father passed away a number of years ago, and she was extremely close with him. And, she doesn't have the best relationship with her mother. And now she's sort of isolated as well due to COVID, from her friends and from school and from the things outside. And, it's such a challenge to sort of draw her into the world, to sort of, to bring her into a space where I guess she isn't so cynical. But so many times, I tell people, I don't know what's grief. I don't know what's being 16. I don't know what's COVID. Like, there's so many factors at work. And so I look for any opportunity. When Molly told me about this, I sort of look for any opportunity to get some insight from people on how best to, come into her space and relate to her, and sort of make her realize that she's part of a bigger community, even if she doesn't see them every day, even if she doesn't talk to them every day, even if she feels very alone. She is part of a group that wants the best for her. So that's sort of what I came here. So I loved hearing from all of these people who, are educators, and they talk about, what we can do to sort of create this feeling community in the next generation. So maybe it won't be, as difficult for them to take that place.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And again, another personal story. In this community, we do get personal and vulnerable, and, we share a lot about, who we are, because that's what Ubuntu is, right? In our authentic, experiences, we are able to express in a way that, helps us to understand, what it is that we can continue to do to lean in, so that book that I mentioned may be a good one, is a resource. It's called Everyday Ubuntu. I'll share with you the link there just so you can be able to purchase for yourself, but perhaps maybe you can gift to her as well. There's something so important for young people, to be able to recognize that they belong, right? This sense of belonging is what actually got us into hosting this year of Ubuntu in the first place, because Violetta was talking about her experiences in Europe and wondering what can we learn, from African wisdom, because we recognize that, the rural communities tend to have this, quite keyed in, certainly, of course, recognizing there are some traumas there from colonization and some of the other things that may have occurred. But why is it that people somehow feel a deep sense of faith, right? They feel like they are actually protected and taken care of, and they're part of something bigger. So that may be a good place to begin there. in continuing our conversation about legacy and how we might want to be remembered, I'm wondering whether we can have, popcorn style conversation here. If you want to share something, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll, call out some names. We will be having another talk in the future about led by, people that work in the healthcare industry, really understanding how they actually, participate in healing when it comes to, Ubuntu in that perspective of hospitality, kindness, respect, and that sort of thing. So if there's anyone from the, healthcare industry here, we can hear from you as well. Tembi is saying she would like to share something. Would you like to go ahead?
Certainly. You mentioned something that kind of got me thinking in talking about young people, the idea that as much as we are eager to shape their lives and move them on a certain path, we also acknowledge that we have a lot to learn from them. In my own experiences, I've had moments where my faith in humanity has been deepened by young people. And I also recognize that those are moments which were very special, but moments that I would have missed. And I keep on wondering in my experience, how do I, as an adult, hold a space for someone, a young mind, to be shaped, but at the same time, make enough room for me to learn from them. And the experiences that I had, in fact, my friends, who are two incredible women who are raising just wonderful future women. They both have daughters. And my experiences with both of my nieces at different times just deepen my faith. And I have to state at this point that I am one of those individuals who I consider myself to be a healthy skeptic. My friend Molly, I'm constantly arguing with her about her faith, because she tends to have this unwavering faith in humanity, which is not something that I hold. I'm a skeptic. I'm definitely not an optimist, and that makes me lean very heavily on hope. So I am very, very hopeful, but I'm certainly not optimistic. And like I said, when it comes to humanity, I tend to have that healthy skepticism. But so my friend Leslie, who is on the line, her daughter at the age of 16 traveled to South Africa, and it was during a very painful and very stressful moment. And I, as the auntie, was very protective, and I said to her, we are just here to support this girl at this moment, because this is a very difficult, and we need to give her time to grieve, but we need to protect her. And I was concentrating so much on protecting her. And it wasn't until I took a moment and decided to take a step back and breathe when I recognized that she has within her all the tools that are needed in order for her to live out her own Ubuntu experiences based on that which she has been granted, I guess, by her mom and the other members of her community who continue to shape her. So in that moment, this was a young woman who was able to relate to people that she did not know at all, but people who were overwhelming her, who wanted to possess her, wanted to comfort her, but also wanted to own a piece of her, because these were family members that last saw her when she was 2 years old, and now she was this beautiful 16-year-old woman. And the way she carried herself was very, very inspiring to me, moved me to tears, but also just deepened my faith, because she was loving, she was kind, she was compassionate, she hugged. These were people from a different culture. When they see you, they charge towards you and kiss you on the lips. She welcomed it, she embraced it. She never shuddered in any way. And that to me was not only Ubuntu, but the beauty of a human resilient spirit. Mm-hmm. Another occasion was when I was visiting my friend Pesci, and her daughter Amara was stepping out of the shower with a little towel, and she was about to brush her teeth, and she turns on the tap, and as she's putting the toothpaste on her brush, I say to her, oh, we have to close the water because remember, every drop is precious. And that's all I had to say to her. And then she turns off the tap herself, she tightens it, and then she puts the toothpaste on the brush, and as she brushes her teeth, she says in that cute little voice, every drop is precious. So recognizing that where she lives, water is not a problem, but she understands that even in that abundance, we have to preserve, because this is a commodity that is under threat, right? That a time can easily come where the scarcity affects her. Her auntie Molly lives in California, and you guys were having water issues where that was a problem. But in her young mind, she got it. I never had to say anything else. She got it, and she sang it out, and she moved on. It wasn't even a big deal for her. And I realized that in both those moments, these are lessons I could have missed. I could have just said that to Amara and walked out of the bathroom, or I could have continued being the mother hen auntie over Renosi, but I had to figure out that I needed to take 3 steps back and observe. And it was during those moments when I learned my lesson. So I'm wondering, how do we as adults allow ourselves to continue learning these lessons without stifling them and robbing us of the honor of being in those spaces?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is what Heaton was touching on, right? Which is this inquisitive mindset. Instead of being so set in our ways because we think we know what Ubuntu is, or because we somehow have educated ourselves to a certain point, but being open, right? Open-hearted, open will, open mind allows us to actually be the sort of leaders that, the world needs. Thank you so much for sharing really that deeply personal story. I'm seeing others that have not said much at all during the call, and I'll just call out on you here. I see Eula Anyiwo, are you on? Can you say something, or I see you're muted?
Yes, I'm here. I will remain incognito because I'm in my pajamas still. But no, this has been a fascinating conversation. I actually joined the meeting very late, but of what I have picked up, I've been very impressed. You posed a question, Molly, about how do we imagine our legacy? And what I see really are some of the lessons from my own mother. When we are thinking about her legacy that we are now enjoying, she used to tell us things that are very appropriate, I think, for this discussion and consistent with Ubuntu practices. Things like when you open your hand to give, you are also opening it to receive. So I encourage a lot of the people I see, it's not always about giving something physical. It might be giving something spiritual. It might be giving something social. It might be giving advice. So encouraging the spirit of giving. That's how I see my own legacy, is to be able to inspire people to give and to give what they have. The conversations we've been having this morning are really about giving. Everybody's giving of their experience. Everybody's giving of their talents. And everybody, I always say that everybody has something to give. So I think you're just going to have to think through what you are good at while you are young, so that you practice those things that you are good at doing. And those are the things that people will remember you by, if that's part of what you want to be. And you have to really be, what's the word I'm looking for? Intentional about practicing those things and being consistent, so that when people think about Dr. Molly, they think about those things that you want to be remembered by. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And that's such a good point, right? Because a lot of times we think, oh yeah, you know, when we start talking about legacy, you know, maybe I don't want to be cocky and, you know, telling people this is, you know, what I've achieved in my life. But a lot of times the legacy is nothing more than the people who are coming after you, who you have somehow imparted some education and some love and respect, really just living their lives in that same way, because someone that came before them actually show them regard, right? People tend to really just want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to know they belong. And if we're able to continue to cultivate that, indeed, I think that's an Ubuntu legacy in the making. I see we are, you know, starting to run a little bit out of time. Ralph, you've been quiet. Are you still there? Oh, you're on mute. I don't know if you are saying anything, Ralph. That's all right. Maybe you're there, but not really there. Let's see if I can find another name, someone who is not, you know, shared much. Do we have anyone who is burning to, you know, say something to the concept of legacy, how you might want to be remembered? You know, I know that for some folks, if you are still in your 20s, you're like, what's that, right? Mutsa, do you want to share anything, you know, or Paida or somebody?
I actually want to share.
Okay.
I found it very fascinating that this morning that we're having a conversation about legacy, because with the pandemic, I got a chance to kind of connect with myself and connect and try to really search deep within myself and figure out like who am I? You know, like who do I want to be? You know, what do I want to be remembered for? And I realized that for a greater chunk of my life, I was looking to the stuff around me or the people around me to define me to me. And when I started thinking about my legacy, I realized that if I continued to live that way, my life was going to be a compilation of other people's goals and perspectives for me, but not really about me. So I loved it when you talked about connecting to self, because I had to really change and start connecting with myself and start connecting with the things that are important to me, with the things that I want to be remembered for, with the things that I want to invest time and energy into. And so it's such a powerful thing to be having this conversation today, because this is a conversation that I began having with myself and I'm continuing to have with the people around me.
Thank you. She muted herself, I guess. Go ahead.
Dr. Molly, I think
Yeah.
Louisa wants to say something. I thought I saw something in the...
Yes, and I also saw Mutsa also wants to share. So very good. Shall we have Mutsa share, and then is it Louisa or... Oh no, that might be Leslie from before. Go ahead, Mutsa. and thanks, Faida.
Thank you so much. What I can say about legacy is sometimes when we look at ourselves, we say, what is it that I can offer other people? Some people can just say, maybe I don't have enough money to offer, or I don't have something physically to offer. But I can say it's not all about money. It's not about something you can touch physical, no. You can share love. You can share, maybe you can motivate someone to be someone different tomorrow. If I take for example, I have been privileged to live in different houses. And if I look at Ubuntu, I've picked so many things from different houses. So if I come across other people that have problems that they think these are so difficult to solve, I can help them. I can motivate them that this is not that difficult. If you take this path, this thing will change. There are some people that have gone through the same problem like you, but look at where they are today. So it's not about what you are seeing today, but it's what do you want to be tomorrow? So it's something we can motivate each other and share love. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mutsa, and thank you for your deep courage there to share and to be a part of this conversation. I see Mucha is commenting there. You all speak to my heart. That's very good. These are the conversations that we know are very much about the things we've all been feeling, but maybe not have had the permission to outwardly, sit in a circle and have conversations about. I'm seeing perhaps maybe Katie and Tembi at some point having a conversation about, Katie's 16-year-old and what the Ubuntu spirit that you saw, Tembi, in your niece, and what can we continue to impart and learn from each other in this community to be able to grow the spirit of Ubuntu in a way that actually brings more courage, right? More resilience into the young people that we are tasked to serve. And obviously, we are tasked to learn from. So thank you for the young spirits out there and for everything that, of course, you teach us. Anyone else wants to share? I'm looking in the comments here.
Hi.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm Lindy. So one of the Ubuntu, what I've learned, my recent experience with Ubuntu was I work with an organization called Sanitary Aid of Zimbabwe, where we go around teaching on menstrual health, on donating pads to the less privileged. So with COVID, we're not able to do that. But then we then had of a group in Binga, which is like a rural part in Zimbabwe where they needed pads. So we decided just to organize with a group of friends and we sent what we could. And the joy that we got, the videos that we got from those people, that for me was the definition of Ubuntu. You don't necessarily need to know the person that you're helping, but sometimes just by doing something small to someone, the immense joy that you get and the joy that you see from them, that's Ubuntu, coming together to help each other, whether you know each other or you don't. So with Ubuntu, it's just basically that legacy that you need to show that I am there. If you need me, you don't need to know me, just I am there for you. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's pretty powerful. And what we do know for sure is that more and more people in the world are a little bit skeptical about this self-made man, right? Or this individualistic perspective to living a meaningful, fulfilled life. We are starting to find that people want to be in community, people want to belong. And sometimes where we see that there are challenges is because somehow we have an opportunity to learn that community does not have to be just the people you were born with, right? Community does not have to be necessarily just your parents. There may be scenarios where you can cultivate community from people you met in college, right? We were talking about this conversation previously, Katie. And I can say for the number of people that have been on the call today, some of them have left already, you have become community because we cultivated it, right? We were able to invest in that. What does it mean to be actually so intentional is, Tiula was sharing there, about making sure that we are actually, investing in these relationships, that we are showing up and ensuring that in anything that we can give, we are actually already receiving. I think I was talking to one of my mentees that I'd been sharing some information with, and I needed that information for my own, professional journey. And I said, well, that actually makes a lot of sense. The more that I am training others and teaching others and taking time to share, the more that I'm actually being emboldened, right, in my own journey. And this is the spirit of Ubuntu that we are talking about. We have just 5 minutes left before we end. Do we want to hear from a few more voices that are on the call, but have not shared much? Lynn, I see you smiling. Do you want to share?
Yes, Molly, I just wanted to share one quote that you have shared with me that definitely speaks into how we live our legacy. And this is the quote from Martin Luther King that says, one of life's most urgent questions is, what do you do for people? And what you do for people is what they'll remember you by.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty remarkable. Thank you for sharing that. And, in the hues of having, celebrated Martin Luther King holiday here in the US, these are, the sort of conversations and inspirations that we get from others, because we can certainly see the way that he emboldened himself as an educator, in the civil society organizations. He truly was leading with Ubuntu. So we thank you so much for sharing that. Jasmine, did you want to share something?
I just wanted to say hello and thank you all so much for creating this opportunity for people to come together. It's my first time knowing about this meeting, so I appreciate being included. I work with young people in Liberia with theater to tell their stories together, and what I've learned is that even though it can be hard for young people to speak up by their own one person self, everyone can tell a story with a friend. So they're really learning how to use their collective voice to make a space for themselves as young people. And I think that is definitely in the spirit of Ubuntu and the things that I've heard here. And that's how they're creating their own legacy. So thank you very much for the time.
No, thank you indeed, Jasmine. And you know, it's what, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I'm intrigued. Thank you very much, Jasmine, for bringing that up, because I've also worked in the creative industries. And, you know, one of the things that I've been pondering a lot, like seriously pondering, and sometimes gives me a headache, is this year the United Nations has declared created the year of the creative economy, which means they are putting the creative economy as central to reaching the Sustainable Development Goals. And it's been a long time coming with the Sustainable Development Goals, from the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, to the Sustainable Development Goals. And at the core of that question is something that you have touched on, is what does it really mean if we are actually going to attain these goals? Where does Ubuntu place? Because for as long as we don't start cooperating and working together, how would we ever reach these goals? And I thought about the role the creative industries play, and you bring up theater and its ability to communicate messages to community that ordinarily are very intricate. And I just imagined in itself, you have kind of brought forward a solution that could be used as part of this declaration of 2021 as the year of the creative economy. So I'm sorry to get a bit technical, but you touched on something that I've been really pondering about, and trying to understand what the role of Ubuntu would be in this declaration of the creative economy in 2021. Thank you.
That's awesome. I would love to talk about that at some point in time. If I can just give a very brief response, I would say that as young people, especially on the African continent, are working with people from outside, that those relationships need to be reciprocal, and the sharing and knowledge building should be done together. What I do encourage, I'm working on my dissertation now, and one of the things that I really end with is that when people go into different parts of the world and they seek to do some kind of an intervention, they should include artists and they should pay them. Not this thing of including artists and wanting them to work for free, or of not including artists, because then you lose major elements of culture and ways that people come together with shared values. So I think that is the richness of the arts, is that it helps us tap into our shared values on whatever the issue is, from climate change to any particular issue. It will help us understand our values better.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And perhaps maybe that may be a good way for us to end, unless someone has something burning they wanted to share. This is a growing community, and it doesn't end with us being here on this call. Let's keep connected, you know, whether it's on WhatsApp or, you know, on Facebook or other social medias. Let's continue to advance the conversation, but going beyond the conversation and in engaging how we advance and how we develop as individuals, because we recognize that it can only begin with ourselves, right? In who we are, we define Ubuntu. In who we are hospitable to others. We are showing others, you know, what it means to actually have deep regard, deep respect. And through those examples, you know, we are beacons of this wonderful, you know, concept. It's a philosophy, but also an embodied practice, and more so in showing that it's not just a badge we wear on our chest, but who we are in the world day in and day out. And as educators, recognizing the opportunities to learn from others, but also perhaps to impart knowledge in a way that continues to advance our legacy. Thank you, everybody. You've been so remarkable, and I look forward to speaking with you outside of this.
Thank you.
All right.
See you.
Yeah, bye. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Molly, and all the organizers for this.
Can I just ask how you connecting with everybody? Because I got a DM through Twitter from Year of Ubuntu, so I didn't know about this group or anything else. And if I didn't get that DM, then I wouldn't have known about today.
Me either. Amaray sent me a message about it from UC Irvine.
Okay,
Just
so
randomly.
the first thing I can say, I guess, is if you just go on, we are working on a website, but if you go on Facebook, if you happen to be on Facebook, we have a page called Year of Ubuntu. That's a good way to start there. You can always look me up as well, Molin Madziva. Our other co-host is Chenesai Mangoma and Violetta Book. So you can connect with us there. I think there are opportunities here to actually get you engaged as well with the next events that are coming up. We're going to be having events focusing more on healing and, the public health sector. We're going to be talking about NGOs and nonprofits. We're going to have another one for leaderships, people that are in leadership positions. So all of these opportunities, I think, and then we have one for creative sector, actually, some creatives there. I think that one will be pretty fun because we can definitely get into the, spirit of creation. We have put a note in the comments there in the chat for where you can find more information. But I love how our community is growing, just other people passing on the information. And today was really a wonderful day where we managed to connect with everybody. And for those that were on Facebook Live, thank you as well for being here. Alison and Jasmine, I hope that we can communicate further starting from today.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Yeah, bye. And bye, Martha. I will definitely be in touch with you. Thank you for being here today.
Bye, Martha. Bye, Dr. Molly. I've enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Thank you. You were amazing. Bye.
That's really.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks to you. Thanks to you.
Yes, that's amazing.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.